Hey, sometimes you just got a courtesy flush. It is what it is. You know you're about to stink up the whole crib. You got to flush that thing early. Warriors show up Friday night in Cleveland after a very emotional victory against the defending championship Celtics in a battle, right? And towards the end of this road trip. And now you come into Cleveland, who quietly is the last undefeated team in this league with the number one offense. Kenny Atkinson, Steve Kerr's right-hand man, now back with his own gig. And you could tell just from the jump, Steph and Draymond just didn't have it, right? And that's what happens with older ball players. There's just going to be nights where they just can't get the engine turned over. And I think with Draymond in particular, when you look at this team and the depth with Slow-Mo and Kuminga, I think it's important for the staff to recognize early on when it's a night where it's like, hey, Draymond ain't got it tonight for whatever reason. And that's not to say he doesn't finish the game or he can't come back and make an impact, but I think they got to recognize that early. And you could kind of, I mean, Steph is the system, so Steph to a lesser extent, right? And so I don't know how much you can take away from last night because it was, again, you had to get it back. I'm surprised they started the second half, right? But I don't want to discredit this Cavs team because I think even if they did have it, I think it's a very difficult matchup. Let's start with this Garland and Mitchell backcourt. You've got two guards who can get anywhere they want on the floor. They can shoot it out to 30 feet, right? And so instead of that blitzing defense, they kind of tried to trap. There's a difference, right? Blitzing is like, boom, we're firing up full speed. A trap can kind of be like a hedge, like I was showing you to, but we were more reluctant to blitz because of those two. And then the fact that you have these two vertical spacers in Mobley and Jarrett Allen. And so it kind of looked like I thought it would, right? And this Cavs team is all of a sudden, you just look at how they're constructed. Now, Okoro, I don't know, right? You got Niang, like their wing shooter that's going to be left open is going to be a question. But what Kenny Atkinson has done has got them pushing tempo and sharing the ball. And they're going to go as far as Evan Mobley takes them, right? And you saw him with the ball in the middle of the floor, and Draymond was just giving him too much space and room, and it just snowballed quickly, right? But I also think that Donovan Mitchell has reached a point in his career where he's no longer chasing stats. He's like, all right, I want to win. I want to win. He only had 12 points last night, right? And so now I think he's bought in, and they have this team that fits together. It makes sense. And again, even if Steph and Draymond were up for this game, fresh and ready to go, it's going to be a tough matchup when you just consider the vertical spacing, the closeouts that creates, and the inability to really blitz those two ball handlers. And then what about our old friend, Little Bone Jerome? What y'all know about Black Ty? What y'all know about OG Pods, Ty Jerome? Yo, shout out to all the Ty Jerome haters, man, because I'm not going to lie to you. I kind of enjoyed him lighting us up since it was kind of already a wrap, right? Now, if it was a close game in the fourth quarter and he was lighting us up, I probably sound a little bit different. But I just thought it was funny because I get it. The year that he played for us, he played too much. I understand. And we weren't a good enough team for him to fit into the role that he needs to be in, right? And you can see he's a nice backup guard, right? So I'm happy for his success. What I was curious about when you talk about the blitzing and the trapping and this new aggressive defense, and you see it, like at the end of a road trip, it's going to take depth. Especially the older vets, they're not going to be up to do that. I thought we could have dropped into a zone, and I know Stackhouse is leading this defense right now. Stackhouse strikes me as the type that's like, I don't believe in zone. Zone is soft, right? And I understand that concept, especially when you're teaching younger basketball players. It can teach kind of lazy habits to fall back into a zone. But the reality is sometimes you find yourself in matchups where you can't stay in front of a couple guys, and it's just, you got to try it. You got to show that different look. And that's the one thing defensively in the last couple years that seemed to work at times, flashing a zone here and there. And so I'm surprised we didn't see any zone. And it kind of almost seemed like the coaches conceded, right? They jump out 20-2. There wasn't like a quick timeout or anything. Kerr was there with his hands in his pockets. I think they kind of knew it was a scheduled loss. And Again, this is where you got to ride the depth. We'd have been better off with Steph and Draymond never suiting up. I understand, though, that you've heard this, the NBA ratings are down, right? Unless Steph is playing, and the pressure that Steph feels to show up and play on the road. But, you know, I don't know if it's a fine that Lacob's willing to eat, but I think there's going to be spots in the season where you utilize this depth as saying, all right, we're sitting Steph, Draymond, and Wiggins. You know, because I think we would have had a more competitive game if they would have just rolled out Pods and Kuminga and Moody. At least we would have had a competitive basketball game, but on to the next. I guess the silver lining would be we probably have a better shot in OKC because of how this played out, right? Just psychologically as well as energy output. And you got Pods and Melton to just kind of knock the rust off, get their wind up, and get a little bit of a rhythm. Now, that said, still going to take how do you say this word? I want to say this word, Herculean. All right, I just butchered it. You know what? It's going to take a massive effort to get it done in OKC the way they're rolling and the last game on this road trip, right? They're going to have to make threes. And I guess the last subject would be this starting lineup. GP2 got the start. You understand it on paper because you got to deal with Garland and Mitchell. But when you consider Wiggins is slumping with the three ball, so now you've got GP2 out there, Wiggins, Trace, Draymond. You got that right now currently is a lot of suspect shooting around Steph. And so perhaps in this OKC matchup, we see Buddy get inserted into the starting lineup. Because, listen, I get we're hanging our hat on defense, but in some of these matchups, you're going to have to lean into the offense, and you're going to have to just be like, all right, we got to take 53s. We're on the road, end of a road trip, and we just got to get hot from outside. I think that's probably their best opportunity in this matchup. Do we see some zones? We'll see. But, you know, hey, these games are going to happen. It's a lot easier a pill to swallow after the start we got off to, right? You know, you understand that. If we had lost the first 3 of this road trip and then we got whacked like that, I think my tone and our feel would be a lot different after this one. It is what it is. You got to courtesy flush it. Hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.